Welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is the Saturday, October 18th edition. Nick Tammaro here. Pete Fornatel is taking a day. We're not going to allow him much more than a day. That'll be it. But here we are. I am joined by Jonathan Kinchin, back from his international escapades, which he was sharing with me, which unfortunately did not involve any horse racing. So what we're going to do now that you're back is load you up as much as possible. Jonathan, glad to have you back stateside.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah, I tried to get to a racetrack, but I wasn't able. The best I could do, I'll tell you, the time zone, as Central guys, growing up in Central is the best time zone for sports, and it's not even close. Noon football, 3:30, second game, perfect. 7:15 Monday Night Football, the best. I'll say that Rome is not great for American sports.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's not. I remember we were talking about me studying abroad 22 years ago now, and I remember us being out way too late one night, and we were at a bar in Florence, and they had the Monday Night Football game on. Of course, it was Tuesday morning by this point, and we were like, "Are you going to stay open? You're going to stay open?" And they said, "Yeah." And so we sat there until 5 a.m. watching the Monday Night Football game.
It's tough. I didn't get to watch any night games. Texas kicked off at I think 9:30 when they played Florida, so that was tough.
Well, that was a good one to miss, but last week's was quite a bit better, and yeah, they're on the up now. I feel good about the rest of the season. I think they're gonna play better than people think. So
I hope so.
I still believe in Arch, but we believe in you, all of our fans out there, all of our subscribers. Glad to have you in the mix as well as we inch our way towards the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, stay tuned for everything we've got going on at the network. But what we have in the short term is a good pick 5 sequence that begins on Saturday at Keeneland in race 6 at 3:40 Eastern time. And it starts with a grade 3, Jonathan, the Perryville, going the 7/8 here. Just a field of 6, but a good group and some horses that we familiarized ourselves with during the lead up to the Kentucky Derby. In fact, a horse that was actually a very strong Kentucky Derby future book favorite at one point in Barnes, who's making another start here. I made the 5 Captain Cook, the morning line favorite at 8-5, coming in off a huge performance in the Jerkins. Where did you land in this first leg?
Yeah, I'm going to make Captain Cook a single as well, a single A horse. I'll use one horse as a B. Yeah, I mean, the Barnes and Gaming show, they'll take some money, I think, just because it's Baffert. And anytime Baffert shows up at a racetrack, not even outside of California, anywhere, basically, he's going to take some money, especially like you mentioned with a horse like Barnes that has that name recognition from the Derby Trail. But Captain Cook ran so well last time, first time for Todd Pletcher. You'd like to think that maybe some of that has to do with the trainer change. And no offense to Rick Dutrow, but sometimes you move from a guy like Rick Dutrow to a Hall of Famer like Todd, you can get an improvement. There's also the idea that maybe just getting back to the game that he probably wants to be doing, which is one turn, helped him as well. He ran so damn good in the Jerkins. I couldn't do anything but single him here. And then Owen Almighty, I remember saying when he ran fifth, in the Derby, that wow, for him to run 5th, and everyone on earth knew he did not want to go 1.25 miles. There's a significant amount of talent there. He came back and ran poorly at Charlestown, but I'm just hoping that maybe with some time off, we'll get that Owen Almighty we thought we would get. Single A the 5, single B the 4.
Yeah, I don't have terribly much to add there. I agree with you completely about Captain Cook. Look, one of the clearest things in this race is if he runs his last, they're all in big, big trouble. And he is likely a horse that was cut out to sprint the whole time. That Verifier Smokin' Wicked race, while Verifier did not come back and run well in his next start, obviously something would have missed. He finished last in the Jerkins, but Smokin' Wicked came back with that huge effort in the Amsterdam. So that was clearly a better race than I think we may have all thought initially. And this is Captain Cook's game. He drew perfectly on the outside. Even if Rolando goes on a bit of a mission to get the lead, I don't think that'll preclude Irad from setting up Captain Cook outside of him and pouncing when ready. I guess we at least have to mention Barnes in here and talk about what our take on Barnes is. Obviously, you made it clear you're going to loan the favorite, which I don't have much of an argument with, but I haven't figured Barnes out. I know a lot of people liked him in the Jerkins. He ran fine. I have no idea what the hell happened last time, right? He completely lost contact with that field. That was a field on paper that he completely laid over, and he put in this big late run. But I wonder, and Bob is a guy that has made a lot of different machinations with regards to equipment. This horse has gotten significantly slower since they put the blinkers on. I'm kind of surprised Bob hasn't taken him off yet. Do you give Barnes any chance here?
I mean, he certainly deserves a chance, but at the price he's likely going to be and the trust that I have for him, his last 2 starts, like you said, the Jerkins was fine. But he just doesn't have a lot of early speed. And I think that a lot of times the way that Bob Baffert trains his horses, the way that he trains them, if they still don't have a lot of early speed, I think it puts them in kind of a bind. I think they get a little lost back there. And I think that's what will happen with Barnes again here. He doesn't have to prove it to me at what I would project. What did you have him at the second choice in here?
I do. Yeah. I had him at 5-2.
Yeah. The second choice, Bob Baffert, he's going to have to prove it to me.
Yeah, I actually had Captain Cook at 6-5. I erroneously said before 8-5, but yeah, I have him a pretty strong favorite. I know that's a lot of support coming off a race where he was 20-1, but that big performance, I think, will stare everybody right in the eyes. You mentioned Owen Almighty coming out of that poor effort at Charlestown. That feels like the kind of place where you want to excuse a bad effort. It was a bull ring 7/8 around 2 turns, and so I'm willing to give him another chance here in a really competitive and fun edition of the Perryville, which goes as the first leg of this pick 5 sequence. Let's turn our focus to the 7th. 2-year-olds going postward here, and there is a horse with experience that'll garner plenty of support. I made the 8 Solemn Vow a slight morning line favorite at 3-1. That had a lot to do with the fact that he was really well bet last out. She was, I should say, bet down to 5-2 at Churchill in a race where she went clear and then ultimately was run down late. The form from that race is limited as far as next starts. The 5th place finisher did come back and equal her Beyer speed figure, running second, going a mile and a 16th. She got beat by 10 for what it's worth, but she did at least equal that figure. And then there was a distant also ran that finished last that came back and ran second at Indiana and improved by 23 points. That being said, the figure seems legit. The question then becomes, is a 69 even going to win this race? And there are some good pedigrees towards the inside. Wesley Ward has Glow of a Rose, who's by Vacoma, still one of the best first out stallions that we have. The mare was a New York bred named Pink Twist, who was pretty accomplished on the racetrack. A minor stakes horse, one-time stake place. She did win 3 starts, 3 times out of 12 starts, I should say, for 176,000. Obviously, this meet has been about Brad Cox, and Brad's got a homebred for Gary and Mary West. It's interesting. He's got a homebred for Gary and Mary West on both Saturday and Sunday, and I'm very intrigued to see how they bet these horses. This one feels like she's going to be geared a little bit more towards distance, and if you look through some of the progeny, there is a winner on the turf, but the other 2 siblings to win both did so at a mile and a 16th, and each debuted at a mile. So I wonder if she's ultimately going to be a horse that needs a little bit more ground. As far as the pick 5 goes, I'm going to use the 1 Slay the Day, the 4 Glow of a Rose, and the 8 Solemn Vow. Anybody else for me would probably be a backup. It is interesting that a daughter of Taylor S., who is kin to Taylor's version, who's in the Perryville, is the 9 on Cheryl for Dale Romans. Looking to see maybe if I can get a line on some workouts if this horse has been training well. But I thought it was relatively wide open. Where'd you go?
Yeah, well, let me ask you this real quick, Nick. How much digging do you do for your morning line when it comes to like workouts? Are you digging?
Yeah, a little bit. It's tough on Saturdays because I have to turn that line in on Sunday. So yeah, I'll try and find through the grapevine some info on who might be getting better workouts.
Yeah. So anyway, for me,
did I misprice a horse in here who has good workouts?
No.
Okay.
No.
It certainly is. It happens.
I wouldn't set you up like that.
No, I don't care. I have no ego.
No, I was just curious. I just know that it's a little bit easier to do like a Saratoga. I know David Aragona does, but he can get that information from the workout report before it comes out from his colleagues at DRF. It's just an easier thing.
And there's also a lot of availability. He has a lot of availability on XBTV of those works, which
absolutely
we do not have the luxury of those in Kentucky.
Yeah. This is one of those races where, depending on the races surrounding it in the sequence, I could approach this race completely different in 2 different ways. If I had some stronger opinions later in the sequence, this is a situation where I would spread in here and try to beat Solemn Vow. But you can't move the races around. The pick 5 is the pick 5, and it's how it's determined by the order the races are and the way that the sequence lays out. I can be aggressive in the first leg. I have to be aggressive here, or I'm going to price myself out of making this thing make sense because I have to spread in the last 3. So I'm going to single A Solemn Vow. I think experience, one of the things that really punched me in the face a couple times this summer and was a reminder and a new thing that's burned into my brain is even the next fastest horse in the world is at a disadvantage to a horse that has made numbers of starts. The experience, the fitness, all of those things. So Solemn Vow to me, based on last race where they took money, took a lot of heat, fractions coded red early in that race. I'm going to single A Solemn Vow, and then I'm going to use the 1 horse Slay the Day as a single B. And the reason being, is if you look at that work two back, a Bullet at Churchill Downs working. The one thing I like about that is this horse has a lot of speed from the rail. So I'm just hopeful that Luis Saez will send away from there and have nice, good, comfortable position moving forward. And if something happens behind him, Slay the Day could wire. Those are the only two I'll use. And the good news is if I get knocked out early in this sequence, then there's 3 more races I can try to figure out a way to get back involved.
Yeah, for sure. Slay the Day, a relatively inexpensive into mischief, but obviously that workout on October 4th looks pretty good. I mean, there are horses in here we didn't touch on that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that could certainly take money, that have credentials like the 3 Feeling Groovy, a Daughter of Charlatan, Charlatan Progeny, or just 9% first out in his first crop. But this is a respectable dam side, a horse that worked well at the Ocala sale. The dam was a multiple winner on the turf. The couple of siblings to race, the one winner was on the turf as well. So you wonder ultimately if this horse might be a little bit better on the grass. I do think this is one of those where if there are good horses in here, I think it's going to take them a little longer to get there. And honestly, I think that gives you that much more confidence in a horse like Salvow, who's likely to be ready at this third asking for Al Stall. That is race number 7. Let's go to race number 8, which is at 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. And I will tell you, this is not only a race where I had a difficult time finding a morning line favorite, it was a race where I had a difficult time finding a horse that I particularly liked. And I'm hopeful that you have a bit better opinion.
No, not really. I mean, like I said, I'm going to spread in here. 1, 3, 4, 5, 11 is A's. 1, 3, 4, 5, 11 is A's, and the 2 is a B. I'll talk about a couple of them. Let's start with the 3. This is Usker. This is just a guess. This horse has 1 turf race. It wasn't very good. The last race got a 98 buyer. There's not enough that have run out of that to know if I trust that number or not. But for whatever reason, it is a situation where, the horse got Lasix back on, and the horse ran fast. And to me, that's a in good form thing. There's not a ton of pace in the race as well. I just wanted to make sure I had some coverage from this horse. The other one that I'm going to use is the 911 Turbo. I think those 2, not bad runs, but 2, defeats at Kentucky Downs can sometimes make people think that a horse might not be in great form. But Kentucky Downs is tricky, and coming back off a short rest and all those things. And I think if you look at the race at Del Mar back on July 19th, that was a really good performance, right? Closing in, having some trouble, closing into a pace that worked out okay on a racetrack that I felt like being wide was problematic. I really like 911 Turbo. I think is one that could get involved. So I'm going to spread in here 1, 3, 4, 5, 11. And like I said, I'll use the 2 as B's. But the 2 single A's in the first 2 legs are going to give me that right to be able to spread a little bit more in these last 3.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's that kind of race for sure. I thought, like you did, that This Is Usker was dangerous. He's the lone speed on paper. And I do think this could be one of those where if Edgar Morales is able to get him out and back things down, I guess it depends on how much Saez asked Theismann from the rail. He has shown a lot more speed in his last couple of starts, but I think he'd be willing to defer if Edgar is a little bit more aggressive on This Is Usker. One of the challenges that I face as a morning line maker, especially at a place like Keeneland, and I think we all face as handicappers, is what to do with Kentucky Downs form. And you sort of alluded to that. You take a horse like Green Light, who admittedly ran poorly last out at Kentucky Downs. He didn't really run that great 2 back at Ellis. That was a race where he wasn't treated with Lasix. And I do think this horse has proven he's a little bit better with Lasix. I always am careful with that assumption because races where you have Lasix are non-stakes and races where you don't are stakes. So it's like, yeah, he's probably better not facing stakes horses. I do think he's going to run a little bit better. The public, and I think some of the algorithms are pretty heavy on proven form over the course. So I do think this horse is going to get pretty well backed. I thought the 7 Siege of Boston also, in addition to some of the horses you brought up, was a little bit interesting. I know he's got to run better than he did last out, but he was compromised by slow paces on a number of occasions leading into his last. And he did make kind of a quick wide move that day before flattening out. So I thought there was at least a little bit of a case to be made for him. So I would beat every bit of the 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7 here. No argument from me on 911 Turbo, who initially I thought was probably a little bit better going longer, but actually has been pretty effective going the mile and 70 type trip of late. So definitely a horse that I would keep in the mix as well in that really tough 8th race. Well, speaking of tough, let's go to the Raven Run, the 9th, to be run at 5:16 Eastern time at 7 furlongs. This has come up a good race year in and year out, and this year's no exception. I will say, Jonathan, I think Ragtime is clearly the horse to beat, but I don't necessarily love horses with her style at Keeneland. It has been a very fair surface all meet, no denying it. If anything, there are days where it feels like it's actually been a little bit better to be coming from off the pace, so I don't think she'll be hurt by that. Other than that narrow miss in the test, I mean, she's been unblemished and she's looked very good. Didn't get out of the gate at all in the dogwood last out and still ran very well to run everybody down. I'm going to use her, and I'm going to use the 2 Kentucky Oaks alums outside of her that now come back from layoffs in the Simply Joking and Quiet side. So it's going to be those 3 for me. Simply Joking is a trainer switch to Michael McCarthy, and I obviously have all the respect in the world for Michael McCarthy. I think he's outstanding. He doesn't really have great numbers off trainer switches, but I don't care. This is a horse that I feel like the prior connections kind of let you know from the start. They really, really liked her. They ran her in a stakes race first time out. I thought she ran well in each of her first 3 starts. I'm not holding the Oaks against her. And I do think sprinting is probably what she wants to do. And then you have Quiet Side on the outside who probably wants to sprint as well. And is probably going to be better on the cutback. Now she comes back from a break for John Ortiz. And I thought those were the 2 interesting horses outside of the favorite. I don't really want Usha or any of the speeds towards the inside. Give me the 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah, it's an annoying race for me because like there's probably 4 horses in here that I wish if there's others weren't in here, I could single. I'd be excited about. I am going to use Usha. I actually thought her last 2 races were pretty good. Got fast figures, and when Baffert gets them going like this, and she's going to be aggressive. She could be out there on the front end. There's other speed in here, but she's obviously the speed of the speed. So I'm going to use her as an A. And then I agree with you completely. I don't have a lot to add. 9, 10, 11 to me are all A's, which is why I'm annoyed. I wish that it was just Quiet Side in here so that I could get excited about her return to the races, sprinting. Simply Joking off the trainer change, a horse that had a bunch of talent, probably went a little bit further than she wanted to go. And then Ragtime, who I think the 7 furlongs in some of her performances were outstanding this year. But unfortunately, they're all in here. So I just have to kind of like hold my nose. 8, 9, 10, 11 as A's. I'll use the 7 as a B just off of that big performance last time. Fast number, but I don't necessarily trust it.
Yeah, that's Maida that you're speaking of, who comes in for Brittany Russell, who's 10 to 1 on the morning line, owned by the Goodfellas LLC, which is one of the names I hadn't seen before. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, early on, it looks like it's going to be between she and Usha as far as how things set up. It'll be interesting to see how much speed Delightful Claire shows from the inside. They went to Joelle, which leads me to believe they're not really looking to go that hard out of the gate. And I wonder if maybe they thought she was probably a little bit misplaced early in the dogwood. And she ran really well in the dogwood. The 1-2 finishers came from deep in the pack in there, and that race completely blew up. But it feels like a tough assignment being drawn inside and trying to negotiate a trip from there. But I do trust Joelle in these kind of scenarios, so we'll see what Delightful Claire has to offer. But 9, 10, 11 for the most part for both Jonathan and I. Well, that takes us to the nightcap at a mile on the turf. 2-year-olds are going to do battle here, and certainly not an easy way to finish it off. How are we going to do so, my friend?
Yeah, I'm going to go 7, 8, 9 as A horses, and then I'm going to spread, if I can, here with some B's. 1, 2, 3, and 11. 1, 2, 3, and 11 as B's. I guess the one that I trust the most in here would be the 8, Shane's the Brains. Puts the blinkers on. Took some money. In those big full fields, you're taking money at Kentucky Downs. There's a story there. Obviously there's some ability. The horse was entered into a stake, but scratched out of the stake. The untappable that Quiet Street one was on the also eligible. So obviously there's some high regard for this horse from Doug O'Neill. You get Frankie, you put the blinkers on. The horse has enough tactical speed. That's where I landed ultimately on top. But I'll use 7, 8, and 9 as A's. And then I said, I'm going to spread with some of these first-time starters. The 1 and the 2 look a little bit interesting. Nothing to really get overly excited about from a pedigree standpoint, but at least there's a little something there. And so the 11, the other one, or excuse me, the 12 is the other one I wanted to mention. I think I might have said 11, not Liam's Latte. I do not want Liam's Latte. I wanted the 12 Karmic Cat, another one that maybe the surface change for Whit Beckman could be something that could help this one after debuting at Saratoga. It didn't take a ton of money that day, 12 to 1. But did take a little bit of money. So 7, 8, 9 for me as A's, 1, 2, 3, 12 as B.
Yeah, 12 to 1 on a 12-horse field, so definitely some action. I will say, before talking about the horses that are in the main body of this race, if the 15, really, if any of the 13, 14, or 15 get in, I think you need to take a hard look at all of them. Yes, they'll be poorly drawn, but the 15 Indigo Woods was the one who kind of stood out the most to me. This is a daughter of Blue Point out of a mare named Brushed Gold, which takes me back to the days of when Bob McNair's Stoner Side stable was active, and she was a Stoner Side homebred, being by Touch Gold out of a mare named Painted Lady. And she has produced multiple turf winners already, including a pretty nice hard-knocking turf horse named Rediscover, another horse who was active overseas for Godolphin. So I would pay particular attention to Indigo Woods if she's able to get it off the AE list. You know, the horse that I kind of liked that should be an okay price is the 3 Maverick Queen. And a lot of times the public doesn't know what to do with the line like the last one where the horse lost the rider, and it's essentially just a line through. And, you know, if you were taking that and you told me this horse is going to be 8 or 10 to 1, you'd probably take it, right? Because there was no opportunity for this horse to run any kind of fast fig in the debut at Ellis. It was a super, super slow-paced race, and she wasn't going to put a whole lot of a charge into them late. The third place finisher from that race did come back and win. The horse, of course, got another 38 Beyer speed figure. So it's not as if the figure is off. I just think this horse is going to get better with a bit of experience. Owen Hardy, the kind of guy that's not really going to put the screws to them to be ready first time out. So I'm expecting an improved run in there. I had no idea what to do with the horse on the rail for Kenny McPeak, Patron Silver, who is by War of Will. War of Will has been a solid first out sire, not great. His turf numbers are just okay. And the dam side is not exactly loaded up. The dam was unraced, and most of the horses that she produced were claimers. She did produce a horse named Red Lodge, who won the Colleen and then ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint all the way back in 2016. That was before it was a Breeders' Cup race. So there's a little bit of pedigree there. I guess that's a horse that I could probably find a way to include. But I wanted to try and focus more so on some of the horses you mentioned, like the 3, 7, and 8. And then I would find a way to sprinkle in the 1 if the 15 is unable to get into the race. So a pretty contentious way to close out this sequence. Jonathan, will we be looking for you on the America's Day at the Races broadcast this weekend?
You will, yes. Saturday and Sunday, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah, Saturday and Sunday.
Very nice. We will be looking forward to that. A good card at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday with some of the starter allowance races in addition to the Sands Point. We're, of course, getting a lot closer to the Breeders' Cup. Pre-entries will be out 1 week from today. We're taping this on Wednesday. We're like early birds. But 1 week from today on October 22nd, pre-entries will be out. And obviously the draw will be on Monday, October 27th, a day that has a tremendous amount of significance. And I should say happy belated birthday to your son, Austin. I know his birthday was on Monday. I meant to text you because October 27th, when we draw for the Breeders' Cup, will be my daughter's 6th birthday later on in the month. So very much looking forward to that. And again, Jonathan, thank you. Glad to have you back stateside. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, Nick. Good to see you, buddy.
For sure. And a big thanks to all of you. Be sure to stay tuned to everything we've got going on at the network. Rate, like, subscribe. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, best of luck.